Hi guys, my name is Rachel Neideck, and I'm going to tell you about the community I live in, or the city of Rochester, Minnesota, which I've currently lived in for 3 years. Um, this is the picture of the skyline, and then our water tower is in the shape of a corn cob. Um, so the location of Rochester is in Olmsted County, in the southeast corner of Minnesota. It's 54 square miles, and then there's the Zumbro River running through it. The population is 116,961 people as of 2019, and this makes it the third most populated city in Minnesota. And you can see the map of Rochester and the shape of it. So the age, there's about 24 to 44 years is the most populated, and then under 18 would be the second most populated, and then anybody above 64 will be next. And then I think that's mostly because of employment and jobs lure in the 24 to 44-year-olds, with Mayo Clinic and engineering jobs being the most, the most popular. As far as gender, it's almost even. There's 51.6% female, 48.4% male. And then racial composition, it's 80% white, 7% Black or African American, 7% Asian, 2% multiple races, 1% other, and then 0.36% Native American, and 0.02% Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. So we're very much comprised of a white population, and then a lot of the Black population actually are from Somalians. And then the political demographics. There's there's kind of a trend if you look at the chart, for Minnesota being a swing state. So in Olmsted County, you can see in '96 we tied for Democrat and Republican parties, and then in 2000 it was very much Republican, along with 2004 election. But then in the 2008 election, we swung over to the Democratic side and stayed there through 2012. But then just this past election in 2016, it's almost equal, with the Democrat just barely leading. And so now they're kind of predicting, with Rochester growing, they're interested, I don't know, studies are kind of predicting that we'll go back to the Republican side for the 2020 election. So we'll see what happens. And you can see in just this past election, it was Clinton got 45% of the votes, and Trump got 44%, and then 10% voted other. But we're still kind of more liberal than conservative. So we'll see what happens. And then the quality of life, for education, about 2,436 people just have a high school diploma. 8,154 people have an associate's degree. 18,750 people have a bachelor's degree. And then 15,154 people have a graduate or master's degree. You can see in the charts, the males are blue and the females are red, so the graduation rates are pretty similar, but more females graduated with a bachelor's degree. And then as far as race, and their graduation rates, depending on race, Islanders, this is looking at high school degrees versus bachelor's degrees. But Pacific Islanders, 100% graduation rate of both high school and bachelor's. Whites, there's a 96% high school graduation and 46% bachelor's. Native American, 95% with high school and 16% with bachelor's. And then with multiple races, 91% high school, 47% bachelor's. Asian is 83% high school, 57% bachelor's. Black, 82% high school, 22% bachelor's. Hispanic is 72% high school, 23% bachelor's. And then 64% high school for other races and 14% bachelor's. So a lot of the population has high school completion, but this doesn't look at associate's degrees or trade schools, and I think those would have a higher percentage among the other races, because that's kind of the trend that is happening more recently in today's society. And the poverty rate in Rochester was overall 10.35% of the people, both employed and unemployed, live in poverty. Males make up 9.59% and females make up 11.06%. And then by race, blacks are 42%, Hispanics are 20%, other races 9%, Native Americans 8%, and more than one race 7%, white 7%, and Asians are 5%. And then the crime rate, Rochester's pretty much a safe place. However, it does have a number 32 for the crime index. You have a 1 in 49 chance of being a victim of a violent or property crime. A lot of it is dependent on where you go and when you go to these places. So most of the crime happens in the parts of town that are cheapest to live in or the more lower class. And so I think with the high economy and high market, retail market in Rochester, it makes crime a little better, just because if you want to live in Rochester, you have to be able to afford it. But there is crime, and so it might not look like the safest place to live, but you can see the U.S. average. Rochester's kind of close to the U.S. average numbers, but a lot of those are property or thefts, burglaries. Not really a whole, you can't have, a super safe town, but yeah, number 32. So then formal institutions, most of the formal institutions are ones that provide employment. So Mayo Clinic is the biggest one, providing nursing and administrative and business, and I don't even know, there's so many jobs within Mayo Clinic. And then IBM would be the next big employer, doing finance and accounting and engineering, etc., those jobs. And Rochester Public Schools is also a big employer. And then some other formal institutions along with schools would be the University of Minnesota has a campus in Rochester that does a lot of nursing and business and some other bachelor's degrees, as well as a limited number of master's degrees. And then RCTC is the Community and Technical College in Rochester, so a lot of associates in trade programs are done through there. And then Rochester has an international airport with 3 or 4 airlines that is actually owned by Mayo Clinic. So there is an airport in Rochester. And then informal institutions, a big one for people here are sports. So Rochester has a baseball team called the Honkers and a hockey team called the Grizzlies. And then 2 informal institutions that are important for me is Charter House, which is where I work. It's a retirement living community owned by Mayo Clinic. And then Rochester Assembly is the church that I attend. So that's a big one for me. So seeking the good community, reading the article, I picked out safety, goods and services, relationships, and values. So safety, he talked about in the article, only when people are trapped or have virtually no other alternatives will they endure an unsafe community. And Rochester, as far as natural disasters go, we're pretty well trained on what to do. The biggest ones we have are tornadoes, flooding, and blizzards. But the city is pretty good at knowing how to manage those disasters and warning us before they come. Crime, it happens in the lower class populated parts of town, but it's pretty well managed. Environmental, I think with Mayo Clinic kind of leading Rochester in a going green movement, it helps with environmental safety, and public transportation is a major push here, so traffic isn't too bad. And then recycling is free, so they're really pushing people to recycle more. But no one feels trapped or unsafe. Rochester is very much, you come in, kind of figure out what you want to do with life, your goals, and you either stay or you leave to go find a career after you get your training. And then there was also goods and services. People are first of all biological creatures that must be fed, clothed, and housed to sufficient levels to sustain life. Above that is a choice. So Rochester's a high economy, has a very high economy and not necessarily affordable. It's family friendly and it has great jobs and it has food that will accommodate all diets, but the housing, even for just apartments, makes it really difficult to live here. And the farther away you live from downtown, the cheaper the housing, but the higher the crime rates. So a lot of people will commute into Rochester from surrounding towns. However, this is making just these employment opportunities like Mayo Clinic and IBM being so attractive, it's making the surrounding towns raise their market rates as well. And then relationships, I stayed in Rochester despite high living costs because my friends and family and coworkers, church, just grocery store clerks, I mean, everybody here is so friendly and nice, and everybody likes those small talk interactions. So there's a positive outlook on life. And values, Rochester's a larger community, so there's multiple smaller communities within Rochester that allows you to find those people that you can share your values with. And it's open and friendly, so everybody can mix and mingle. But there's smaller communities that you join. And then here's my references, and then the photo cred for the pictures that I posted. I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation. And Rochester is a great place to live despite the high living costs. Thank you for listening.